What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Hit It DEADNUTS Podcast. This is episode 2, and today we're going to dive into the origin story of DEADNUTS Outdoors with the co-founder, Cole Daniels. The Daniels family founded the company, and Cole has been a madman with getting the company rocking, all the new ideas, coming up with new targets, and ultimately just being the driving force behind this machine. So I'm excited to have him on, tell everybody how DEADNUTS got started, learn a little bit about him and his family. Just again, I think I said it in the first episode, some of the best people I've ever had the opportunity to meet in my life, and it's been such a blessing to have that opportunity. And I can't wait for him to fill you in on a little bit about his family, his background, what he does, his day job. Believe it or not, DEADNUTS is not his full-time day job. Yeah, man, and just learn more about this company, where it started, how it's grown, where it is at today in 2026, and where it's going in the future. So we're going to let Cole jump in here in a couple minutes, and excited to jump in with Cole Daniels to hear the origin story of DEADNUTS Outdoors. All right, man. Well, Cole, welcome to your podcast, the Hit It DEADNUTS Podcast, man. This is officially episode 2. I wanted to make sure episode 2 was your guys' origin story. The first episode was kind of a big overview of who DEADNUTS is, kind of what you guys do, but we really want to hear it from the Cole Daniels mouth here on. I want to hear everything, man. So let's back all the way up to before DEADNUTS. I want to hear about you, kind of your upbringing, your family. You guys are all hunters. But tell us, kind of about your wild, crazy family, rodeo family, stuff like that. And then we'll fast forward into where DEADNUTS came from, the first target, how it started, and then we'll just keep crash coursing. I got a whole list of questions over here for you.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, just kind of on myself and my family. We grew up in a small town on the base of the Olympic National Park in Northwest Washington, little town called Quinault, Washington. Grew up there through my entire childhood. My family moved us into town. Grew up in the town of Montesano, graduated high school from there. Ended up playing a few years of college baseball here at a junior college in Washington, and then transferred to Grand Canyon University in Phoenix and finished up my school in there. And then really kind of went all in on DEADNUTS and a couple of other business ventures. Just my family has been, they're just kind of trailblazers and grinders. It's always just been lots of big risks taken in industries that need a change. And so, we've always been big outdoorsmen, big hunters, kind of, lived off of all of our own beef, lived off the land that we grew up on. And I grew up watching my dad and all of his hunting partners just, be at hunting camp and my entire childhood. And so I just was really able to take a lot from them, learn a lot from them. And then I realized this is definitely an industry that I want to be a part of and make a positive change in. So kind of the origin of DEADNUTS was peak COVID. There was nothing else to do but shoot your bow. And my folks had a sign and apparel company in Grays Harbor County here. And we went to buy a 3D archery elk target. And it was $1,800 with another $300 or $400 in shipping and a 5-week delivery. So we just printed a photo of an elk on one of our corrugated pieces of plastic, cut it out with a box knife. We drilled it to one of our block targets with, a drywall screw and a Milwaukee drill set. And then my brothers and I just started shooting the heck out of it. And, that was going to be a year where we were going to have a lot of time to hunt because no one knew how long the world was going to be shut down. And my dad was really taking advantage of teaching my brothers and I, proper shot placement. We were shooting more than we'd ever shot before. And that's kind of how it started. And it really wasn't supposed to be a business. It was more just my dad teaching my brothers and I, how to be more ethical hunters and find greater success in the hunting industry or, in the field when we're hunting. And not, be running around just flinging arrows, game wasting animals. And so it was just a tool to make us better, our friends and our family better. And then we made a couple of videos that kind of went viral. And a lot of people are like, well, where do I get that? I want one of those. And so then the wheel started to turn. And we decided to make some developments into the product, make it a lot better, create, replacement vitals, be able to fold it so we could ship it. And it really turned into a business from there. And now here we are, a handful of years later, just still kicking and operating and working in the industry. So it's been great. Nothing short of a really good time, and it's been cool to get. I think the best thing for me is seeing how many other outdoorsmen have reached out to us and saying this product like made my season so much better because when that bull walked in or that buck walked in, I knew exactly where my pin should settle and release, and it was a quick ethical kill, quick harvest, and so that's been the biggest thing of feedback for me is I think we're actually doing something positive for the industry. So so yeah, that's kind
Yeah,
of
that's
the short little script on the business and where we're at and kind of where our head's at and where we're going. So
that's impressive. I didn't realize I could do a 2 minute podcast, and you just crushed it, dude. So, with that,
yeah.
guys, no, totally kidding. I got more questions for you. So, yeah, man, I love where you guys started. I didn't realize you started in the midst of COVID. So, yeah, you had
Yeah,
to be outside in your backyard where the cops couldn't see you. I'm
exactly.
not sure how your state of Washington was. I know I was in Montana during the whole thing, and to be flat honest about it, dude, like if you didn't watch the news, I don't know if you'd totally know that COVID was actually going on up there. Like
Yeah.
it was, about 50-50. I'd say you go to the grocery store, some people wearing masks, some people not. My wife being medical, obviously that had its own like script and military on top of that, right? So like
Hmm.
if you weren't affiliated with the base there in Montana, I think you could have honestly just walked out on the street if you didn't own a TV set and probably not know any difference. So it was a great place to be during that. So do you guys like, I mean, was your business open on the D4 side when you guys were doing that, or like how did that
Yeah.
affect like the kickoff of even beyond D or beyond Dead Nuts, but into like D4 side?
Yeah, so I mean that's kind of like a good point. Like Dead Nuts was really just a transition. We had all the equipment and the material from the D4 side to turn Dead Nuts into a reality, into a business. You're talking about millions of dollars in equipment, buildings, and the whole nine yards that we had to do it. The D4 side shut down. There was like during COVID, I mean, all business in Washington State shut down. You couldn't go to the grocery store, you couldn't go anywhere. You had to have a vaccine card, a year down the line to go into restaurants in certain counties. Like it was not a place you wanted to be during that time frame. But it was definitely it's interesting to say this because I don't ever want to go back to that, but it was crazy how free and easy life was during that time period. Like it was just go out into the back field or go out into the back pasture and shoot your bow, and you had no responsibility, and you were just hanging out with your family, and you were doing the things that everyone works their butts off every single day to do on the weekends every single day. And I really enjoyed that time actually. It was great. But the D4 side, it completely shut down during that time frame, and it took, a year or two to get things kind of on track and rolling. And that was one of those times too where no one could go into a retail store and go shopping, in many of the states in the United States. So everything was just like us posting random videos on social media, and that's where kind of like people were getting the eyeballs onto the product. And so yeah, that's what started to happen in that time frame. And then over the years it's kind of evolved to the quartering away, the quartering to the different species lines that we have created, the different partnerships with different conservation organizations and major creators in the space. But just to think that it came from hey, that's a cool picture of an elk, let's print it out and cut it out with a box blade, has been kind of a fun journey.
Yeah, dude,
So
that's so cool. And the where it came from too, because you were the customers out there looking for the at the time probably the best case scenario 3D experience you could get for training yourself on something like an elk. The
yeah,
downside of that is when you get a close to approximate life size thing in a 3D foam, dude, it's extremely heavy. Like
yeah.
and the shipping on that, I can't even imagine what that is. And I didn't even think about, during that time frame, the 5 week lead time and everything else. Like it just becomes a
Hmm.
huge inconvenience. And ultimately, you guys are just like trailblazers, like you said. Did you know that when you first cut that first bull elk out and you had it on your target, you started thumping away at this thing, and you already were that customer that was going to buy this other target option or wanted to, and just was a little bit inconvenient and pricey. Did you know that this was something that you were going to be like immediately dive into, or was it literally until people started asking that you're like, oh, this might be a new market opportunity here that's not done yet?
Yeah, I mean, we really didn't want it to be a business. It was like just my dad teaching my brothers and I, and then we had a couple buddies come over, and you have a couple of beers, and you shoot the target. And we're like, this is so much more fun than shooting a dot. And then we're having competitions, and then we're talking about, oh no, the heart's here, or no, it's not, it's right here, and oh, you're back in the liver. And then like now we're really starting to understand anatomy. And then years down the road, we end up partnering with Quiver, and that really comes to life with what we were talking about. So it really wasn't supposed to be a business. It was just kind of a backyard tool for us to improve as outdoorsmen. And then, we made a couple videos, and we realized, man, we have an opportunity to really be a leader in this industry to teach people proper shot placement based on the angles of the animal standing in and the animals they're hunting, because each anatomy is different, whether it's front leg forward, front leg back. And that was something that we realized, a year or two down the road that we could really do was we can take advantage to teach people proper shot placement depending on the shot angle that is presented to them in the field. And so it really turned into a business just because people were wanting it. And then we, developed some, first round of product and sent them out, and they were nowhere as good as what our product is now. But it was just, a continuous evolution of product development to make it into what it is today. And that's in my opinion, the most realistic archery target to prepare you for the hunting season. So, yeah.
Yeah, man, I love that. And I love that you're rooted in education, and it was
Hmm.
for your own personal education. And I love the snippet you added in there about you guys having that, again, that buddy to buddy experience in the field and
Hmm.
shooting at your target and go and arguing about an arrow's placement, right? Because I
Yeah.
don't know how many, I've shot two elk, one with a bow, so I'm very limited on my experience with that. But I have a general idea of where I'd want to shoot it, and but I really hadn't practiced outside of going to a handful of 3D things or some total archery challenges on an actual elk,
Hmm.
period, right? And the only experience I had going into that was, or education I had going into my first archery elk hunt was a guy, the guy that ran the property or whatever. He was like, hey, like his advice was shoot the thing lower than you think you need to. So,
Hmm.
I grew up Midwest Iowa, whitetail deer hunter, and all over the place. I've killed tons and tons of deer. And I mean, you stick that pin behind the shoulder and you let her eat, right? And it's a
Hmm.
quick, easy thing. It's just muscle memory once you've done it a handful of times and you kind of have an idea. But there's on an elk, that was a whole different. When you shoot an elk in that same mentality, it's not so much that the shot isn't going to be lethal. It's that elk can go a lot further and do a lot of different. Its reaction and post trauma after a shot is totally different than a whitetails, right? And so like you
Yeah.
you really do need to practice on each individual animal, and the concept of
Hmm.
shooting a deer species behind the shoulder works, but it's better if you actually know, like, okay, I've trained over and over and over to pick where that brown hair meets that white hair right in that crease, and then I really like what you said too on the um I think you mentioned like the muscle structure and the bone structure of the animal as
Yeah.
well. That's something I never thought of until I had a dead nuts target. I look at, again, probably hundreds of deer at this point through iron sights or rifle scope or the pins of my bow, and I'm
Hmm.
just sticking it behind that shoulder, and that's about it. I just have, like, honestly, I probably go tunnel vision just on that paper plate of the rib cage,
Yeah.
and I've never thought much about looking at the way he's standing if he's going slightly uphill on a creek bank.
Yeah.
And how his shoulder's actually back and his muscles a little bit more tense there, and you can actually see where the shoulder blade curves in. And on an elk, you're talking a major section of real estate behind that
Yeah.
shoulder that actually like might not be as good as you think it's going to, or you're just not going to get a blood trail and it's going to be really hard to find the thing later. But if you, I think you guys called it the or someone, or maybe it was you guys one time called it the basketball, that V that's actually there in an elk to take advantage of that V, push it forward into the shoulder. When if
Hmm.
you're an uneducated person and don't understand exactly what's going on in there, like that just looks like a big ball of muscle, and you might not want to actually, you might not want to punch him there, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's rooted in education. It was rooted in a backyard argument, and then now you guys, like with the replaceable vital zones. Let's talk about like how those are placed on the individual animals. Is it all like how
Hmm.
do you guys determine this is where our replaceable vital core should go? And then I know on ours you had that real razor thin pencil line that's kind of like the ideal. If you can get it in that ring, you can't see it at 20 yards, which I really like actually, because my
Hmm.
brain isn't, again, tunnel visioning on a dot. Like, hey, I need to center punch that 10 ring. I'm focused on, hey, let's look where that hair color is slightly different. The shadows there, I see his muscle, whatever it is. Like, how do you guys
Hmm.
pick where that goes? And then the dead nuts targets is life size or life like. So what dimensions are you guys going off of? Because obviously, like, these bull elk are impressive. I've got the bull elk in the backyard right now. It's a giant target. Like it really,
Yeah.
really close to being life size. But the only thing I'd say is maybe the length's a little different, but I know you guys are constricted obviously with your materials. So how do you guys
Yeah.
come up with those dimensions and where you put the vital zones?
Yeah, so everything is based on a brisket to top of the back measurement. So all of our animals, besides maybe a couple of like a handful, like the moose, the bison, some of those more once in a lifetime style targets, they're all anatomically correct. So we measure everything brisket to top of the back. So an elk, for example, is 28 to 32 inches on average from their brisket to top of the back, and ours sits at about 30.5 inches. So you have the true no man's land above the spinal cage and the lungs, and you have a true actual organ structure of the lungs, the heart, the liver, back into the guts. And then where it does get a little bit short is nose to rear end. However, we're more concerned with that like big organ structure than we are from nose to the rear, like rear side. Obviously, we have to cut the legs down just so they'll ship in the boxes and, be a little bit easier to set up on your backing target. But yeah, that's kind of how we get our vitals on all of our targets. We measure brisket to top of the back and we set an average, and then make sure that we can get everything compacted to ship them out to the customers. The way we set our vital areas is that same way. So like you'll understand, obviously we're looking for something behind the front shoulder, or through the front shoulder on the replacement vital zone, depending on if that leg is back or forwards or just, perfectly up and down on a broadside shot. However, if you look at like some of our quartering away options, I've always been taught, and I'm a firm believer in this, is you find that back leg. And because that animal is quartering away, you're going to be coming in kind of the back of the front lung and out the top of the front or of the back lung. And so, finding that back leg, that's kind of how we set that replacement vital anatomy there. And then through the use of Quiver now, it's been kind of a game changer because we can go ahead and scan the target, one of our broadside targets or quartering away targets that has the chip, and then realize, okay, yeah, this is about where that replacement vital should sit. So that's what we've been able to kind of operate on and work on, and what we've always just kind of looked for when developing the replacement vitals and the anatomy and what you're looking at and shooting at. So, and then obviously, yeah, all those are replaceable. And I noticed you talked about like not having a dot. Well, that's the biggest thing. When you're in the field, you never have just a dot to settle your pin on and shoot. So actually seeing the bone structure and the muscle groups and understanding, hey, I need to hit here based on, I mean, I'm picking out fine hairs from 40 yards down or 50 yards down my range and releasing my arrow, and understanding the group based on the anatomy rather than understanding the group based on a dot. That's been a real game changer. So that when that bull or that buck or that bear is standing quartering away or broadside, it's not your first time in the field that year that you're releasing an arrow at it. You've done it 1,000 times in your backyard at something that didn't give you a visual representation of a dot to just focus on and shoot. So that's kind of when it comes to developing the anatomies and the targets and the way we face them. It's just all like lifelike and experiences that us and other hunters have experienced in the field. And we're like, I've seen that, but I've never practiced that shot before. But I was presented with an opportunity and I didn't shoot it. Well, that's great. Maybe it was a shot we shouldn't have taken, or maybe it was a shot that was an ethical shot. We just didn't feel comfortable because we'd never practiced before. So that's
Yeah.
kind of that's kind of the run on how we set the anatomy and pick the targets that we do pick.
Yeah, I love that, man. And I know, like, I think the black bear is probably the one I've probably had the most eye-opening opportunity of like trying to pick that out versus going to, like, again, I've been to tons of 3D shoots and stuff before, and when you're shooting at a 3D target, and this isn't a knock on them, they're awesome, they're fun.
Hmm.
Foam is home, baby. Like, just let them rip, right? But it's you always have something that's not the animal itself, whether it's the actual, ASA scoring rings that are on there. It could be the 150 guys that have shot it before you. There's just that big dark area where all the paint's peeled off that you just kind of know, okay, I need to
Hmm.
aim somewhere in there. There's something to draw your eyes away from like the real life factor of if that was an actual animal standing in front of you. The thing, this is where I really noticed it on the black bear. For me in my backyard is that I have to, like, number one, I've never shot a black bear, but I know that there's a little bit different shot structure with these guys. Got to aim a little bit further back. Definitely want to make sure you're dead center of that body structure because all the hair on either side. But when you draw your bow, there's nothing there that says aim here. And I've
Yeah.
seen a lot of 3D targets, by the way, that aren't even close to where you should actually shoot a black bear.
Yeah.
Where how they have their vital structured and stuff, but there's just nothing that like takes your brain and says, oh, you've got it here. So you literally, like, you're looking, okay, I've got to figure out nose to tail, what's about center there, go a little bit forward, read them top to bottom. Okay. And oh, by the way, that little tiny black patch of where you just find a black patch in his hair, right? Where it's like a tuft of hair is sitting. And you just settle your pin on that tuft of hair and you're like, that's where I've got to go. You shoot. And then you
Hmm.
get to go up and actually reflect on your shot later with, like you said, you guys kind of have the vital, that pin line thing that kind of says, yeah, you hit where you needed to hit. And then,
Yeah.
like you said, now you guys have an evolution with partnering with Quiver guys, Quiv
Yeah.
AR. And if you haven't heard of that, it's basically a digital 3D. It allows you to 3D scan your target with your phone, and it turns your phone into like a 3D X-ray scanner. So you actually get not just, hey, dead nuts put their vital section here. You get to see the internal why of why you want to aim there, what organs you might have hit with your arrow, and that kind of stuff. So it took it to the next level.
Hmm.
Like, how did you guys get integrated with Quiver? Because like I said, you guys already have the best visual representation of an animal. It's a real
Hmm.
animal image, pretty much life size. The vitals are anatomically correct. So you're
Hmm.
training hunters to pick that hair on that animal versus a dot, but then now you're evolving it into Quiver and partnering with those guys. How did that partnership come about? And tell us a little bit about that.
The partnership with Quiver was just a random email one day. We're like, that's pretty cool. And we saw the technology on one of our targets. It looked like they had placed one of their chips on our targets, and we saw some like random anatomy. We're like, holy smokes, that's exactly what we're trying to do there. We're just not smart techie engineer guys, always kind of have vision here, and these guys are. We should call them and see if we can put that technology on it and, grab a royalty. And that's kind of how it started. And then from there, it's just expanded. But the whole basis of wanting to partner with them just goes back to the education space. We have always wanted to teach people proper shot placement based on the anatomy of that animal and the angle in which it's presenting itself in the field. And those guys took our vision and then exponentially grew it based on, the technology that they were able to provide. And so, for me, it's about creating more successful hunting stories and less bad ones and game waste. And so, being able to teach outdoorsmen all over the country that proper shot placement and then be able to actually reflect it with the technology that Quiver has provided was a game changer in what my ultimate mission was. So I knew it was something that we needed to take advantage of and partner with. And so, yeah, I can't thank the Quiver guys enough. I really think what they're doing is really great for the industry, and excited to see where this partnership continues to grow together. But definitely, it was just like a tool that drove what our base was even harder. And so yeah, that's kind of how everything got started with them. But just everything just falls back onto education and shot placement, and with the ultimate goal of creating more successful hunting stories for, people to talk about in the future. So more meat on the table
Yeah,
for
man.
for all of our friends in the hunting industry. So
100%, man. Yeah, and
yeah.
it's super cool because with the Quiver technology, I'm a little bummed. I don't think you accepted my invite to Whitetail Willie
I know
competition
I'm
last
I'm
night,
I'm
but
back home right now. I don't have my whitetail Willie target. I'm at the shop though. I'm just gonna grab a new one today and I'll
yeah, you got to.
go set it up. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's an advancement, man. So
Yeah.
an update on Quiver. So last year they introduced the technology into the targets,
Yep.
and the technology it's awesome, but it was fairly basic. And I'll be the first one to raise my hand and say I was kind of like on that edge of I liked it. I think it's really cool, and I like the education piece, but it was a little limited on my end of like me wanting to continue like doing it. Once I scanned a couple targets, I was like, okay, that's cool. But I found myself just not really utilizing it once I kind of had an understanding of where Quiver showed me the actual anatomy was on the different animals and stuff. And
Hmm.
this year they expanded that to way cool. You can
Yeah.
actually interact with the app, which I love. So now users have a reason to be in there all the time. But in my backyard, like you can invite people to competitions. I think you can have a maximum of 5 people in a competition. So
Hmm.
like Cole, you're in Washington. I'm over here in
Hmm.
sweaty Alabama, and I had my whitetail Willie target up, and I'm like,
Yeah.
let's invite Cole to a archery competition. We just did a bull elk one the other day,
Yep.
and Cole kicked my butt. Again, I'll tuck my tail between my legs on that one, but and he shoots a lot more elk than I do. I'll give him that. So anyway,
Well, it was
but yeah,
neck and neck
it's
until the final round on the elk competition. So
but now like the app's technology, the Quiver app's technology will literally give your arrow a score inside the target, just like a 10, 8, 12 ring, whatever, but a little bit different, right? Because it's actually based off the lethality of your shot. And it's
hmm.
based off of a bunch of factors. So the distance is a factor, the angle of the shot's a factor, and then ultimately where your arrow lands, the vital organs that it hits, that the broadhead would have hit on its path through the animal, and its distance from center of heart. Is that correct?
Yeah, so that's kind of how the score system works is, what organs did it hit? And then if it was hitting certain organs, how far was it from the center of the heart? So your highest score is going to be through both lungs and the center of the heart. And it's going to be some type of point value over 100 points. And then it's going to adjust based off of that. So if you're a couple inches off the heart, you're going to have a less score. If you're top of the lungs, it's going to be even further from the heart. So you're going to be at a smaller score. And the app features now are pretty impressive. Like you were saying, you can have the competition. So I can be in Washington, you can be in Alabama. We can have guys all over the country, up to 5 in our shoot. As long as we all have the same target, Aaron's going to be the host. He's going to shoot he's going to set the competition up. And this is just an example. It's going to be 5 rounds, 2 shots per round at 30 yards at the whitetail willie target. Then all of us just log on through our app, join his competition that he invites us to, and we can shoot and compete against each other. And Quiver gives us an automatic leaderboard through the app. So now the competition feature has just grown to a point where there's no more arguing, oh, you're in the heart or you're in the top of the lungs or the back of the lungs or in the liver. You know exactly where you're shooting and you're getting a point system to compete. And the thing that I also like is actually I've been taking advantage of the new training feature in the app where I'm getting ready to go on my first ever high country mule deer hunt. And it's backcountry, it's early season, and I haven't shot. It's crazy to say this, but I've never shot a mule deer with my bow. And so I have been using the training on both my quartering away and my broadside mule deer target at different yardages to kind of hone in to see where is my max like shooting range on a mule deer. And that's been really great to see. It's been cool to see how much I've improved since I've started these trainings on, hey, I'm maxed out at 60 yards on a buck that's quartering away, and I'm probably not going to shoot past 70 yards on a buck that's broadside. And so just understanding that I'm way more inconsistent, further than those yardages through the trainings inside a quiver has kind of given me an idea. I need to be inside of this range if I'm going to knock an arrow and release it. But also to see how much I've improved throughout the season by really focusing in on it. So
Yeah, man, I love that too because it's one thing to train on, a static target, right? Whether it be
mhm,
2D, 3D, a block, and whatever it is, a bag. But the thing that doesn't change with those targets is that you're stuck looking at one site, one rendition of what that shot can be, and you're always
mhm,
aiming just broadside. Even on like a 3D is a good example. You shoot quartering away intentionally. You got to walk around the target and shoot whatever quartering angle you want. But
mhm,
the target really doesn't change. The anatomy doesn't change. Or the bone structure and how that animal might actually be standing in real life doesn't change. So it limits kind of the visual representation of what you think you actually did with that shot.
mhm.
And in some cases, I think it might actually train you to maybe aim a little bit not so good. But with the
Yeah.
quiver stuff now it shows you a line straight through the target, how that arrow would have gone through, and it shows you the bones you would have hit. It shows you obviously if you just literally hit no man's land, even on the whitetail last night, there was a couple of times where I was like, I gotta aim that freaking low to get after the heart. It's like
Yeah.
just something you're almost not comfortable doing, but a whitetail, there's a whole semantics thing there. They jump the string sometimes and whatever. But like the quiver stuff has been a huge, especially now that you can scan your arrow and you can do all these different things. It's not just like you can kind of visualize it when you didn't have the ability to scan your arrow, but now there's just no
Mhm.
question. And I love that you can
Yeah.
remove the different things too. So you can pull the bones away if you really like, wait, really, how did I not hit the heart there? Move the
Yeah.
bones out of the way, move the lungs out of the way, and you're like, oh wow, I was actually like 4 inches off. But man, but in your backyard argument where dead nut started, oh that would have been liver, that would have been this. There's
Yeah.
now you have a reason to go, oh holy crap, actually,
Yeah.
I've got to be way up here because that was and it's going to train people to be better hunters. Or the quartering away is a great example too. Is like you might think that you just put a great shot on there, but any degree angle off of broadside, there's a reason broadside's like the ultimate shot. It's because it's kind as long as
Mhm.
you know that paper plate, it's generally hard to mess up, and there's a million things that can happen, but you have the best shot at success.
Yeah.
But training on a quartering away opens up so many more opportunities for a shot if you're comfortable with it.
Mhm.
And you've had the training and stuff, and you hopefully prevent yourself from making what you thought might have been a good shot, but it really just wasn't because that arrow did
Yeah.
something totally different than it would have if it was broadside, or maybe it was too shallow of an angle, too deep of an angle, all the different things. So yeah, I
Mhm.
love the new arrow scanning thing. I'm a huge fan of that, and I use it way more than I actually thought I would. So it's really
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
Um, well, let's talk about your targets again. You've mentioned some of the improvements you guys have made. So obviously you made target number one, box cutted it out. It was standard
Mhm.
fixed, no replaceable vitals. You guys blew a hole through that. So talk us through like your advancements of where you were from the time you first made your how did your first vital section look when you made it? And
Mhm.
then walk us through like, we just talked about quiver, but all the advancements you made because I just got some new targets last week. You just
Yeah.
mentioned you have a whole bunch of species. I got the caribou, the bison, the mountain lion, and the North American Pronghorn Foundation pronghorn. And
Yeah.
you guys have made some updates to these targets that I'm a huge fan of on just how they connect to each other, which is
Yeah.
so cool. So start at the very first replaceable vital and walk us all the way through to where they're at now.
So at first it was just a huge freaking billboard of an elk, and it was giant, so there's no way to really connect the antlers. It was just this big old animal and there was no replacement vital. So you're shooting behind the front shoulder and where, you think you should be hitting and you're just punching a hole through it. And after, 2,000 shots, that plastic and that target is just destroyed and gone. So we were like, all right, we got to fix that first. And so what we did was just we created a donut cutout of the vital area. So once you shoot the original vital out, you just pop it out, throw it away, and you can put in a new replacement vital. From there, we were like, well, how are we gonna, hang these on the back of our target? So we created a hanging tab, and the hanging tab is one of my favorite things because one thing that always irritated me with 3D targets is they didn't move. Like I've been full draw on a lot of animals in my life, and their ears are flickering, their butt flickers, their nose moves. And so when we created the hanging tab, which is the tab that sits on the back of the target and mounts directly to your block, your bag, or your bail that you're already shooting into, so your backing target. When you're shooting and there's a slight breeze, it creates movement on your target. So that head might flicker and look at you, or that rear end might flicker and look at you. And we did that on purpose because at full draw, when you got something that's moving and there's actually movement down range, it's like it's not just like you're focusing on one thing. You're like, oh man, his head just moved, and then now your head's thinking, oh, is he going to take a step? Or, so you have all these other things going on in your shot process that movement creates. So that was another really cool improvement that we did. The way they always used to work was we created a hook and loop Velcro on the backs of the target. And so we would create our stabilizer strips, and essentially you take the hook off, and that was just a little piece that connected to the loop, and then that would hold the target in a stagnant position to where it wouldn't fold up. It still would kind of have some float from the wind, but it wouldn't fold up. We just recently this year we upgraded to like these like metal hinges. It's kind of like a U-nail, and essentially all that does is just move right into the position where the old stabilizer strips were, and it's a lot more firm and it's a lot easier for us to manufacture. But it created a much better like finished product switching to those new stabilizer strips. So that was kind of one of our newer upgrades to the target. But it's just all these little things where it's like people are like, hey, I've had my target for 2 or 3 years. It's weathered and the Velcro fell off. But now, we can send a repair kit and it's pretty easy with this new way to get them to stabilize. So yeah, that's been some of the
Yeah.
improvements. We've found out like, hey, when we were first getting going, we didn't have any like antler stabilizers. And so when you have these animals with these big antlers and they get, the flutes are running up and down, well, they get damaged in the wind. And so we were able to put these stabilizers on the antler so that, you don't find any damage to the target when you're in these extremely windy areas. So just little things like that from customer feedback. And we wouldn't be anywhere if it wasn't for people just reaching out saying, hey, if you could do this and this, it would make it so much better. Then we rework our engineering and it's just like bang, just perfect. So yeah, it's been a constant evolution and we're always looking for feedback to do things better. So
100%, man. I love that you guys listen to your customers. I love that you're made here in the USA. I
mhm.
find that so cool. But I love the movement thing, man. That was something I never really thought a whole lot about until Texas, and it was always
Mhm.
windy in Texas. Even in our small little backyard, I could only get like 17 yards.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a mental game that you almost have to use your imagination for. But that target is rarely still. And then to your exact point, it's like, well, how many times have I been in the field and like you said, they're halfway through a step, and you're like, okay, is he going to finish that step? Is he not going to finish it? And you're at full draw, and you got to train your mind to be patient because the animal can do so
Mhm.
many different things. It's just a split second decision, and the further that shot is, the more important that patience becomes. Because you punch an arrow on an elk that's halfway through a shot, and all of a sudden his body moves 2 feet with that one step, and
Yeah.
now you've got a major problem on your hands. You either miss or you hit him where you didn't want to hit him or whatever. And every animal's different. So being able to just visualize, and that was something in Texas too, that hinge hanging tab. A lot of times the head would move on the elk, which I love because it was actually like
Mhm.
they were turning their head to like look at you and then look
Yeah.
back, which elk do. And then the antlers were always moving, and then every now and then that target would just you get a little bit of a back breeze off the fence, and it would lift that target
Yeah.
just a little bit. But even like I said, just being able to sit back there, hold my bow at full draw, and just wait for that elk to settle. And it might
Yeah.
be 1 second, it might be 3 seconds, but just your brain goes, okay, he's settled, now go. And that's huge, man. We don't practice that enough, I don't think, as hunters. And when you're shooting at a static target that isn't moving and it's not real life, that's something we just don't get practice at all.
Yeah.
It's always a dead set. And half the time it's your movement because you're trying to hold your bow on a windy, at Total Archery Challenge, the wind's moving you, it's not moving the target. But ultimately, that
Hmm.
target's never going to move on you, right? So once you're trying to time yourself and your own body movement, not so much thinking about what that animal is actually doing and when to pull the trigger. So I love
Yeah.
that. You also mentioned an insane number of shots that these targets can take based off your first elk. When you guys first punch that huge hole in, you're like, oh, we should do a replaceable vital section.
Hmm.
One of the videos I've got on my goal list to make is like, let's do like a how many shots to the center of this Tootsie Pop
Yeah.
this vital section take, and it's a surprising amount. Like,
Yeah.
and the better shot you are, I'd say, depending on what you do, this quiver technology is going to help me go through my vital sections a little faster, I think, because
Yeah.
I'll be off if I'm off by 6 inches and I think it's a good shot. That's great. But then when I train myself, oh no, I actually need to be down here, and then I start picking out that little dark patch of hair or whatever it is. Then I'm going to start punching that. Well, then over and over and over, you're going to end up seeing your arrow holes and that kind of thing, and then it starts
Yeah.
creating that thing we talked about earlier, where your mind now has a spot that it wants to go to,
Hmm.
and that kind of thing. But overall, like the thing that I like the most is until that. Well, in my 17-yard backyard range in Texas, it wasn't hard for me to punch that quarter size hole pretty quick.
Yeah.
But then I would intentionally like start just mentally practicing. Okay, let me pretend this deer is actually a little downhill, so I'm going to aim a little higher up in the vitals until I punch another hole there, and then the vitals will take a beating. But since I moved here to
Hmm.
Alabama, I can get out to 80 yards in my yard if I do it right, and the neighbors are cool with it. But
Hmm.
anyway, like it's actually a little bit more inconsistent, which has been kind of nice because like these
Yeah.
vitals are going to last a lot longer, and it's a true hunting scenario, right? Like not every shot is perfect. I don't have 100% anchor on exactly where I need every single time until I've honed in on it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so the vital sections too. I've seen some comments where guys are like, "Hey, I just don't know like how durable are they, that kind of stuff." It's surprising how durable these are. And then just to
Yeah.
speak to that a little bit further, I've got I want you to talk about maybe what makes your product this durable. But my testimony to it is, I got my first one in Montana, took that one to Maryland with me. We got a bunch more in Maryland, set up a whole backyard range because we had some woods behind our house. I left them
Hmm.
out year round, which was cool. So I mean, they got all the wet, ultra wet springs, all the rain, the hot, humid summers out there in Maryland. They went through that. Then cold and cold and humid winters. Then go to Texas and literally sitting outside 24/7 and baking sun and wind. And ultimately in Texas, and I did a little video on this. I threw my backstops away because they were toast. Like my arrows would blow through the cheaper ones. I had one that was nicer, but it was like totally beat up. The sun had started cracking it and baking it. Your guys' targets are basically like the day I bought them, with the exception of where me and my son's arrow holes are in them, and it's kind of
Yeah.
wild. How do you guys how are these things so durable? Because like I think that's probably the number one misconception is you look at it and you're like, oh, things just might not hold up, but really they do. I mean, I'm going on
Yeah.
year 4.5, 5 now, and now they're in
Yeah.
the backyard here in freaking hot as hell Alabama, and they're still
Alabama.
rocking, dude. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I mean, I think the biggest thing is just the material. Like a corrugated piece of plastic is used for sign material all over the place. And so they're weather resistant, whether it's sun, whether it's wind, whether it's snow, whether it's rain. Like the weather can take a beating on these things. And the way that we do all of our print files, the print quality stays good no matter the weather. And so I just think just based on that, understanding the material that we create the targets with, we knew that they were going to be weather resistant. And then, when we first got started, we get crazy wet and like some snow and bad winters up here in Northwest Washington. We just left it out there and just let it get beat on. And after having like an entire year of one target up in a pasture, seeing how incredible shape it was after a year and just getting weathered, we're like, man, these are going to be, something you can have in your range for 3, 4, 5 years. And it's going to really take, some extreme weather conditions to really tear them and break them down. And then, when it comes to the shots, sure, you're going to shoot through some vital replacements, but that's why they're replacements, and they're $10 a piece to replace. And depending on the target, you're going to get anywhere from 600 to, 2 to 3,000 shots. Like on our broadside elk, because the color of its hide at 20 yards, I've got arrows through vital areas that are, 1,500 to 2,000 shots in a vital area. And as long as it's still holding strong and sticking, I mean, I'm going to continue to shoot that because you can't see any of the holes. Now, of course, when you move over to like, a darker hided animal like a mule deer or a black bear, sometimes you can see those holes get punched through a little faster and you start to notice that area where we talked about earlier, honing in. So those might need to be replaced a little sooner in that like 600 to 1,000 shot range. But like durability wise, it's really up to to kind of like your eye. And I always base everything on 20 yards. If I can't see, holes at 20 plus yards, and I really don't know where to aim. It's still the graphic of the target's exactly the same. And once it gets to where I can start to punch out that quarter hole size, that's when I replace the vital area. So,
Yeah,
yeah, I think that's kind of the biggest thing is just because they're a pretty inexpensive thing to shoot and it's a lot cheaper and handier than replacing foam. They're that was kind of the design style of the target and just the material they're made out of. They're just going to last a very long time. And if they do, they're at a price point where it's like, oh, great, you got to shoot a full-sized elk for 4 years at $40 a year, you know. And
for
so
sure, man.
it's a pretty good price point to where I think they're gonna really last really good for 4 to 5 years. And I guess I'll see here year 6, 7, and 8, some of our original targets, how they are still holding up and looking from our Gen 1, days. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
100%, man. There's a ton of value there, and like you said, I mean, your bull elk, get a full size bull elk for just over $200 if it's got the quiver in it, sub
Hmm.
200 if it doesn't, and yeah, I didn't even think about the coloration of the animal, but yeah, my elk targets is probably the one that I would say I last the longest on in terms of before I
Hmm.
replace. And I take them to the gun range with me. I take them
Yeah,
to
me
the
too.
thing I love about the material is that it doesn't shatter. That was like the first thing I guess I kind of thought when I first got mine a long time ago before I now had experience with them. I was like, oh, I'll be curious like how long this lasts. Same question I see, in comment streams and whatever. And the first arrow I put through it, I expected there to be some shattered plastic back there, and I pulled it out. And it's not like a true self healing, but when I, got my hand against target, pulled that arrow out, the first thing I noticed is like it's this little crease in there. It wasn't even a hole.
Hmm.
And I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. And I pulled the target off the bag and I look back and I'm like, holy crap, dude, that just it almost like pencil holed through, but it didn't leave a hole. It like
Yeah.
self-sealed itself almost a little bit. So the material is awesome and it's surprisingly durable, handles shots like a champ. And like I said, you have to really even shots that are like touching each other. It's surprising that it takes a lot of arrows or a lot of bullets right in the exact same spot or within a little bit of a space to really even eat the plastic out of it, right? So, and then the
Yeah.
vinyl on the front, the material you guys use on the front, it still holds that target together, the vital zone together. So
Yeah.
it might sound like an exaggeration to people listening here, but when he's saying thousands of shots, like that's not a joke. Like it's surprising how well those two materials work together to give you the longest lasting vital you can have.
Hmm.
Um, and just talking from a term of seasons, I would argue that that's going to the from a foam target compared to this, or this fronting your foam target, this will outlast foam because foam doesn't handle weather all that well. Like it can,
Hmm.
and there's enough of it there to handle some stuff. But really, after year one on any foam target I've ever had, you start to notice that wear and tear that the sun, the UV itself will just beat the crap out of foam. And then you
Yeah.
add snow and cold and hot and all the extra stuff. It does some different things to it. But this stuff, it handles all that. And you can have a
Hmm.
one hell of an ugly backstop, or hell, have an old ugly 3D target and toss this sucker on with that hinge
On
hanging
top of
tab
it.
and totally
Yeah.
refresh it, man. Like
Yeah.
let her go.
And that's the thing
Yeah,
too,
it's
is like they set up and take down in 15 seconds. So I mean, I always tell everyone the better you take care of it, the longer it's gonna last you. And if you do get some of these like severe like big wind, big rain, big snow, really hot summers like you get, in states like Arizona or humid down in Texas, um, it takes 15 seconds to fold it up and put it back in the box and set it in your garage. So, it's not like toting around and needing a storage unit for all your 3D targets. I mean, it's they come in a box designed like a pizza box or like a poster board that you see at your local Walmart. You scroll through it, you pull your elk, you pull your deer, you pull your bear, whatever it is that you're shooting, and you go set it up. When you're done shooting it, you take it down, put it back in the box, and set up another target. And so it takes less than 30 seconds to literally put it together and set it on your phone backing target, to then be shooting. And so if you did want to take it down, it doesn't take a lot of time to do that. So,
Yeah, man, for sure. And at this point, I love that you brought up the space and like the just the compact nature of it because it's
mhm,
yeah, you have a block or a backstop, whatever that is. So that's really the biggest part of having a dead nuts target, or the most space consuming part of having a dead nuts target is whatever backstop you're putting it on.
mhm.
And so that's its own thing. I have a foam block now. I need to go get a couple more so I can actually like have more animals out on the range right now, especially with my boy wanting to shoot it. We got that mountain lion dude, and he hasn't put it away. Like that's his. I put it against a Home Depot bucket, and he lets her rip, and so I've got to go get him a backstop. But anyway, we have probably between all the different conservation stuff now, like probably close to 20 targets. I don't know. I need to go count them. It's kind of I got a little collection going on out there. But dude, I mean, in the space of a 60 quart cooler, I have all my targets.
Yeah.
Like imagine so let the listener imagine what their 60 quart cooler looks like. All my
Hmm.
targets, 20 some targets fit there, and they're all life size animals. So it's wild.
Yeah.
It's wild how compact they are, and won't let the cat out of the bag fully, but we might even have something that's even better than storing them in a box here pretty soon
Yeah.
from some of our partners that are helping us with that. So some really cool stuff coming down the pike there. So let's use that to kind of segue, man. Um, I want to touch on the like you said those metal like I'll call them like a metal slide stabilizer strips. I didn't realize you guys I heard that we're coming down the pike. The target showed up the other day. I pulled them all out of the box, and the first thing I noticed, I literally had to look in the bag a couple times, like, where's the stabilizer strips? I'm looking
Yeah.
for that bag of all the the hook and loop Velcro, and I've looked down. I'm like, oh, sweet. It's in the United. You literally fold it up, you one, two, three, four slides, and it's done. So I mean, it cut your 15-second setup time into probably half that, right? Like 7 or 8 seconds. It's really
Yeah.
really cool. I love how you did that. Um, and yeah, the caribou that thing's sick too, but it's actually got its own head. It's so the antlers are so big on that thing.
So
It's got like
big.
its own head you have to attach, which is neat. So like,
Hmm.
what was your original target? Or we know what your original target was. It was the elk. So
Hmm.
when you guys went into it, like, what was the next target you produce from your elk, and then like, what all targets do you have available now in terms of species?
Gosh, I mean, I guess how long do we got? But the next target was the broadside mule deer. And we're from the West, right? So we were just kind of producing stuff that we hunt. So we went broadside elk, broadside mule deer, probably broadside whitetail. I think we're probably one, two, and three. But right now, let's see, we've got when it comes to elk, we have our broadside elk, our frontal elk, and our quartering away elk, just teaching people all three of those angles. We're partnered with Corey Jacobson on a frontal elk. We're partnered with Dan Staten on a quartering two elk. So those are some custom targets for them. Fingers crossed. I don't know if I can break the whole conservation deal, but we're working with Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, and hopefully we'll have a camp elk, which is just a smaller, more compact elk offering in support of their conservation efforts. So when it comes to elk, that's kind of that line, and nothing official with Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, but we're hoping that we can pull it
No,
through. Is it official?
it's official as of yesterday. Signatures were
Let's
pinned.
go.
So the
So it's
Rocky Mountain Elk
official.
Foundation is on board. Yep.
That
Good
is
timing
great
for
to
that.
hear. Yeah, so yeah, we're dropping a Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation Camp Elk, which is going to be a super cool target. We're actually developing it today in the shop. Um, then when it comes to our mule deer offerings, we have a broadside and a quartering away mule deer, and then we have a broadside mule deer with the Mule Deer Foundation. We just dropped a Blacktail Deer Foundation Conservation Series target, and so that's the only blacktail offering. We've got three different whitetail offerings from broadside and quartering away that are standard to us, and then a whitetails unlimited offering that's coming out to all of their all the guys at Whitetails Unlimited, which I'm pretty excited about that. Fingers crossed we can sell direct to consumer, but I know it's going to be a standout at all of their shows and all of their events this what do they have their events in the winter or the spring, Aaron?
Throughout the year. So you're going
Throughout the
to
year.
typically see them in like have a fall season and a spring season, basically. But
Fall, spring.
some of them start as early as here in like early August. So right around the
Perfect.
corner next week, you're going to start seeing some WTU events. And actually, we just got the first PO
Cool.
for Whitetails Unlimited for a couple or two of them actually. Two of the RDs have them coming. So Wisconsin and Ohio right now are going to be the first two states that you're going to see the exclusive Whitetails Unlimited Conservation Series buck at.
Let's go. Yeah, that
So
that
it's
is a
awesome.
sweet target. That's a lot bigger than all of our standard series targets. So I'm really thinking that one's going to sell really good. So yeah,
And
Whitetails Unlimited is badass target. So
Yeah, well, as I was just going to say real quick, so you mentioned several of the conservation series, so just
Hmm.
we just kind of rabbit holed on whitetails a little bit. The coolest part about Whitetails Unlimited is what you guys committed to as a company, or not whitetails, the conservation series is what you guys committed to as a company to make that series happen. And so for the listeners, like Dead Nuts is rooted in making hunters better shots and ultimately resulting in better success in the field. And they're committed to the future of getting people out in the field by supporting the crap out of conservation. And I've worked in the industry for about a decade and a half total now, and I don't know any other company that goes this buck wild on uh, getting creative in how they operate and how they support conservation. And you guys
Hmm.
launched this conservation series, and it's super, super cool. So I've got like, I'm now a member of I think three or four different organizations because of my Dead Nuts Conservation Series target purchases.
Yeah.
And so what they do is you guys commit to 25% of that target purchase offline goes towards the organ or goes straight to the organization. So when you buy that target,
Hmm.
it's no more than your other targets, but it's a custom animal designed a lot of times with a photographer that's affiliated with the organization. So you're actually getting some really
Hmm.
cool photography of the animals there. And 25% of that purchase goes back. And what's better is with all of the organizations right now, with the exception of Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, their partnership is structured a little different is you get Dead Nut sponsors your first annual or a year's worth of an annual membership for you. So if you've
Hmm.
never been a member of that organization and you buy that target and they have a membership tied to it, you're now a member of that organization and you can support them for however long you see fit, and you're supporting them through that purchase. And then if you already have a membership with them, it extends your membership by a year. And there's some semantics in there, but it's super cool, man. So I don't know any
Yeah.
other company that commits something like that and that creatively as a small company, especially. I
Yeah.
love that. A small made in the USA company says, hey, let's get creative and let's figure out a way we can support them in a lot of cases bigger than a lot of big companies do. And
Yeah.
do our part to make sure we're doing it for the future of the hunting heritage.
And that was kind of a big thing, on like a small company budget, we're looking for, interesting ways to be able to get in with these conservation organizations and be able to, send them a healthy check every year. And so by doing a custom target tailored to their organization, um, we're able to give that kickback of 25% of the target order going back, and everyone gets a membership to learn more about that organization if they're not a part of it already, or, obviously, like you said, extend it for a year. So yeah, so I mean, that has been awesome. So what we're with Whitetails Unlimited, the Blacktail Deer Foundation, the Mule Deer Foundation, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, the American Bear Foundation, the Rocky Mountain Goat Alliance, and the North American Pronghorn Foundation. I got all of them, right?
You got them, you landed
We're
them,
in
yeah.
it. Yeah,
So
we're
you hit
killing
it
it with.
dead nuts on that one.
So, I mean, it's been just an awesome deal. We're creating custom targets for all of them. We got all of our pronghorn offerings, obviously a custom target with the North American Pronghorn Foundation. We partnered with Chris B on the Signature Series. So we got some different things, Conservation Series, Signature Series. When you go into our Signature Series lines right now, like I said earlier, working with Corey Jacobson, Dan Staten, and then also Chris B on either bucks or bulls that they have harvested or angles that they want to educate on to their audience. And so those have been awesome opportunities working with them as well. And then you go into some pretty cool lines, like we got our moose, our caribou, our mountain lion, our bison. You're looking at what else am I missing? We got anything else new that came out cool? We're developing an axis deer right now, so that's going to be cool when that drops.
Go
And then
Texas.
just yeah, I know I had a guy reach out, and I'm like, all right, we're a little busy right now, but I'm going to get on to it after we're done with the Rocky Mountain
Yeah,
Elk Foundation. So
let's go.
so yeah, so I mean, just a bunch of different offerings. Just we got a grizzly bear. I just trying to teach people proper shot placement on the animals that they're going to be hunting. And I didn't think that there was a lot of opportunity to, actually go practice shooting a moose or practice shooting a caribou. And so I think it's important for the people that are going on their hunts to have a visual representation of the animals they're going to be hunting for maybe their one and only time, or they don't get to hunt them every single year, to understand that shot placement. So
Yeah, and it
yeah.
just takes it a step further. And I mean, like again, you're going on a moose hunt or a caribou hunt or a grizzly bear hunt or whatever it is, man. Like you're spending buku dollars to get it. It's
Hmm.
probably a hunt of a lifetime in most cases. And I mean, God willing, you have an opportunity to pull the trigger. And then next best thing is that animal goes down and you're able to recover it. And because in a lot of places, you take that one shot. If you hit that animal, you're done. Like
Yeah.
there's no second chance, or the rules of the outfitter or just the rules of the state don't let you, you can't wound and
Yeah.
game waste and all that, right? So you need to make that shot happen. And I love that you use the example of a moose, especially, well, all of them, moose, caribou, brown
Okay.
bear. Like again, good luck finding an opportunity to practice on that
Yeah.
anywhere. You might get to find it at a total archery challenge or maybe a local Reinhardt 100, but that's one time a year. You get to take one or two arrows at it and
Yeah.
hope that that was a good enough practice. And then the next best education you get. And I've been this guy when I was going on an oryx hunt in Texas. I had to watch a ton of YouTube videos because you just have to shoot an oryx different than you shoot a deer, like an
Yeah.
African style antelope. Um, or Indian antelope. Like you need to. There's just it's a totally different shot placement. Long story short,
Hmm.
but like if you can't actually practice it, like you're just hoping your muscle memory doesn't take over in the field too, right? Like
Yeah.
that's a big thing. I don't know how many times I can't remember actually aiming and pulling the trigger when I've shot something because it's just muscle memory 100%.
Yeah.
And so you always have to default to your worst level of practice. And so being able to practice on something like a moose for $200, like
Yeah.
I'm spending 10 grand plus on a moose hunt, like 10 grand's a cheap one. Like,
Yeah.
for an extra $200, I can just hammer arrow after arrow or take it to the gun range and set it at whatever shot distance you want to practice at and let her rip with a rifle. A rifle, by the way, doesn't do any more damage than an arrow does. I've
Yeah.
shot tons and tons and tons at my elk and mule deer targets and black bear target.
Yeah.
And here in Texas or Alabama, I'm doing a lot of whitetail shooting at this range I just got locked down the other day. But anyway, yeah, it's just take it, whatever rifle or crossbow or longbow or whatever you're going to be doing, compound bow, get it out there, practice, and make sure you know what you're doing when that shot actually happens. So you can just
Yeah.
eliminate that factor from the field, right, as much as you
Yeah.
possibly can. And like you said, something a bison, a moose, whatever it is, the fact that you guys can offer that at those price points and give people a real in your backyard opportunity to practice is
Hmm.
awesome. It's so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. That's been pretty exciting to develop. And it gives us something else to shoot to and look forward to and develop. And it gets the guys in the shop like, oh, look at that one. That one's awesome. And so, it is really, really a cool opportunity to do all that. So
Yeah, it's so cool. I
yeah.
like that you guys named the bison. It's Mike Bison, which I,
Mike
I thought was
Bison.
funny. And
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
perfect timing when that showed up. My son from the local library here had rented a book called Bryson the Brave Bison. So ours is called Bryson. He calls it Bryson
Bryson.
the
Mike
Bison.
Bryson.
Bryson the Bison.
Perfect.
Yeah. So
Perfect.
no,
That's
that's so
awesome.
so cool, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then you're looking at ways to do different innovations on what you've already done and you're good at. I like that with the new stabilizer strips. I think that's so
Hmm.
cool. Adds just a next level of rigidity to it. Like you said, you don't have to really worry over a few years after that hook and Velcro getting heated up in the sun or just the
Yeah.
constant ripping and tearing. It doesn't go bad on you anymore. I love that. Um, besides new targets, do you guys have anything else coming out here in the future that you can talk about, or like what's your next step of
Yeah,
evolution
moving
that you
to
see?
into the kind of the decoy space. So waterfowl and big game decoys, we're kind of mocking some things up, trying to get some pricing on things. Obviously right now with our targets, everything is manufactured right here in our shop in-house, but it just gets to the capability where there's so much infrastructure you have to invest in. I think it's probably better business choice to do some outsourced manufacturing on new products as we develop them. So trying to move into some of the decoy space, we have this pretty cool like for me, whenever I harvest a bull or a buck, I always, hang that buck up or that bull up, and I always put my arrow or my cartridge, hang that cartridge, that arrow, if I can receive them back, right next to it. It's kind of a cool like piece of like just that was the arrow that took that animal's life, and it's cool to just have it sit there. So creating a pretty cool display case to go ahead and showcase the cartridge or showcase the arrow, and it sits like a picture frame right next to it. So a couple new products that we're working on. And then let's see. Yeah, those are probably kind of where we're heading into this winter, but hopefully would love to get some pricing and be able to do some marketing around those and testing on those this fall and winter. So
Yeah, man, if you're going to be a more
yeah.
ethical hunter and you're going to have more success, it's always cool to find new ways to showcase and honor the animal, but just the memory
Yep.
behind it, man.
Yep.
That's one of the things growing up hunting. I kind of got myself into hunting, so it was like one of those things I never really thought a whole lot about. But
Hmm.
I look back, I've got all the memories locked in my head, and then when I got a little bit older, bought had some money to get some camera gear, and so now I've filmed a lot of my hunts or most of them at this point from a
Yeah.
certain point in time. But all the early ones, man, they're all memories, right? And it's like
Yeah.
I've got those dried bloody arrows down in the basement of my parents' house somewhere, and but like it's one of those things that just be able to like have that thing you can look at on the wall is super special, and it's like the picture's worth 1,000 words. Well, your elk and arrow hanging there on the wall, man, it tells a whole story
Yeah.
by itself. So give someone something to talk about. I love that.
Yeah.
Um, Super, super cool.
Oh, good.
Tell us really quick. Let's talk a little bit about the company. We've said it's 100% made in the USA, but I just kind of want to
Hmm.
give people a picture of like who Dead Nuts is right now. And I hear this all the time. Anytime Dead Nuts comes up or I'm wearing a Dead Nuts shirt or hat, people ask and say, hey, like, I literally see you guys everywhere. Like, you're doing something right. And so I think what they're referring to is they see advertisements. I can't watch YouTube without seeing some really cool Dead Nuts ads. And I see you guys got some new ones in the hopper that are really cool.
Hmm.
Facebook, obviously, you're seeing a ton of that stuff. And my favorite part is like you guys are in Shields now, 28 different
Yep.
Shields locations. I've seen you guys in there, tons of mom and pop shops opening up all over the place. I think the last count was like 52 total shops, and new ones coming every single day. It's awesome, dude. So like what size of company are we actually talking about here? You know, because obviously your targets are getting out there. You've been doing it for
Hmm.
several years. You're getting more and more popular every year, and now the retail section is starting to show up and put that
Yep.
footprint on the map. Like how many people were we talking about behind the scenes doing all this stuff?
Kind of in our peak sales season because we're pretty seasonal in when it comes to the targets in the summer months. Everyone getting, ramped up and ready for archery season in the fall and in the winter. And so we see most of our sales between June and August, and we have to kind of have some summer help. I'd say like full-time year-round guys in the shop, we've got three guys in the
That's
shop
wild.
doing it full time. And then in the summertime, we bring in two guys to help on the manufacturing side of thing for, just kind of summer work, 3 to 5 months. And so it's really a team of 3 to 5 on the manufacturing, the engineering, the development, the backside of the or back end of the website, all the graphics, all of that is a team of 3 to 5, depending on the time of the year. And then obviously, you and I, Aaron, like you're killing it on the conservation efforts, you're killing it on all of the retailer efforts. And then, I'm just kind of around, smart. No, but no,
Yeah,
and then
hunting
obviously a
all the
lot
time.
of, yeah, hunting all the time, just doing all that. But no, then me I'm kind of part of that group of 3 to 5 guys just working on, pretty much touching every end of the business. And so that's kind of where we're at right now is I think right now in the shop we got three guys just full force putting targets out, and then I've got Mike who's been with us since the beginning on the engineering side, and Leroy who's been with us since the beginning as well, who does all of like our back end management. And so yeah, just a really good core group of guys, and I think as we expand and continue to grow, it just it's pretty cool because we're in a small town here and we're providing, an economic opportunity for a lot of people to come in and get, a good wage and work with some really cool guys. And, especially like we got a good group of college kids out here that love the hunting industry, love to hunt. And it's cool because they're working in the industry a little bit. And at least we make them think like that because we're still young and new in the industry. And so they love it too because I think they mess up one target a day on purpose because it goes in the blim pile and they can take it home and shoot it. So it's always good to get into the shop and see everyone, just enjoying to be around. Good morale. So
That's
yeah.
awesome, man. A small and mighty team. And I
Hmm.
asked that question specifically because it is such a small team and you guys are just crushing it, man. And you guys, I think you almost doubled last year. You're on pace to over double again this year.
Hmm.
And the amount of work that a few dedicated people could put out that are just passionate about this and then having the vision that you guys have behind it of making people better hunters. Five
Hmm.
people doing this is kind of insane. And
Yeah.
it never ends, just like the whole entrepreneur story, man. But it's a cool thing, and it's a real American made 100% here in the USA, and family owned and operated, and five people out there just crushing it and making these
Yeah.
things happen. I think it's so cool that when people buy your guys' targets, they're supporting the real American dream with that. I think that's super neat.
Yeah.
And with the presence you guys have, and again, I hear that all the time that you guys are just everywhere. I see your stuff everywhere.
Yeah.
To know that it's a small group of guys making that happen is really really cool.
Yeah.
Um, as far as I'm going to ask you a few different questions here to kind of close this out, just more on your
Hmm.
philosophy and archery equipment here. So,
Yeah.
um, uh, for the change in art, if you could change like one thing about the archery industry, what would it be? And I'm asking you that because I think maybe unintentionally you guys did offer this new thing that I don't think anybody looked at the archery target world and said, "Hey, this needs something different." It's been established. You either have blocks, bags, bales of different sorts, or 3D, right? And then different
Yeah.
variations of that. And then you guys came out here with this 2D concept that I don't think anybody thought it needed, and it's an awesome thing, and it opens a lot of doors for
Hmm.
people. So, like, what else would you say needs to be disrupted in the industry, or what's a change you think you see
Well,
on the horizon?
I mean, I think I just kind of want to start with like a lot of people I think fall in love with a dollar sign, and they think that they need, the newest bow, the newest arrow, the newest broadhead, the newest release, the newest camo, the newest pack, the newest set of sticks, like, and they're spending thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And I always look back, like I stated when I started the podcast today, was like I look back at my dad and his hunt partners, and they were shooting, aluminum arrows with who knows there wasn't any specs on a broadhead or an FPS or anything like that. And they just understood the anatomy and knew where to place an arrow. And if they placed an arrow here, the likelihood of that animal dying was, tenfold higher. And I mean that was kind of how we hunted. You put it behind the front shoulder, and you let it fly. And there wasn't all of this information on equipment. Now, I'm not saying the information on equipment is bad. I think upgrading equipment is great and it's good, but just understanding the animal in which you are pursuing, I think, is the most important thing, and what you owe to the animal, more than falling in love with the dollar signs and thinking you have to have something brand new every single year to be successful. Um, and that's where I would really like to hone in on, is just because I see so many people think that because they have the fanciest and nicest equipment, or because they can't afford the fanciest and nicest equipment, they're not going to be a good hunter. It's just not the truth, And so it's just, being a good steward in the field and understanding shot placement is going to take you way further than any fancy new bow, new arrow, new rifle setup, new pack, new, whether you're hunting out of a tree stand or a saddle or anything like that. Like all those things are great, but understanding anatomy and shot placement, I think, goes 10 times further than any of that. Um, and then when
I
you
love
move
that.
into like where is the archery industry going, um, it's interesting to me because like I sit on both sides of it. It's like you see a lot of these big time creators, which me myself, I do want to be a creator because I think it helps with the brand of Dead Nuts. I think it drives credibility to what we are doing because I can put it out on film and then show people, yeah, I really focus in on shot placement and my success rate was this year, this year. But also it's interesting because like I'm not gonna lie, I use, Go Hunt, I'll use Onyx more than probably anyone in the world. Like if they do an hour tracking on who use it more, I'm up there.
Yeah.
Um, but also I see all these spots I've hunted my entire life filled with outdoorsmen now. And that's great. They're public lands. I want to see people on them. We hunt in the West, and so, it's a lot of public lands. Um, but it is a little bit interesting because I think the technology in the hunting industry grew so fast that the game departments didn't grow at the same rate of speed. So trying to figure out what our management is going to be like on the different species as technology continues to increase in, the productivity that it has increased in is what I really am interested in seeing. Like how is that all going to play out and work out? Where are mule deer herds going to be at? Where are elk herds going to be at? How many people are going to be in the landscape and maybe this GMU compared to that GMU in this state, in that state? Like, how are they all doing? How are they all managing things differently? And is it good for the animal and for the species, that those people are out and that we all enjoy to hunt? Um, I guess that's kind of where I'm most interested to see. You get a lot of guys like I follow. I'm a huge fan of guys like Jason Matzinger, Corey Jacobson, Randy Newberg. Like I think they're such good stewards, especially here in the West, that I follow. And understanding the conservation and management behind the species. And I follow Remy Warren's another great one. And like watching those guys and all the efforts they're putting forth and like them actually talking to the game departments and the biologists and where they're going is, I think, so needed for the industry because I think the technology has taken off to a point that the animals can't keep up with it. And if there isn't some type of regulation to like make a happy medium in there, that things could turn bad. But that's my point of view
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah, I think we
So,
just established what podcast number three is going to be because I feel like we could
yeah.
grab a hole on that all day, man.
Oh
But
yeah. Yeah.
because in some cases, method of take is increasing, habitat area is shrinking,
Hmm.
number of hunters is going up, and so which increases pressure, right? And so there's some places where yeah, it could be a detriment on the overall herd. For whatever animal it is, but then on the backside of that, the technology could actually be almost to the detriment of the animal and the human side of it, can be increasing populations by decreasing total take. And I heard a
Yeah.
really, it was from one of, I won't mention their name on here, but one of the partners we have, I was talking to them the other day about some stuff. And one of these things came up and he brought up game cameras. And I was very
Hmm.
surprised to hear, like, I wasn't surprised to hear that he was like, I'm just kind of like over that idea because it's gotten so popular and cell cams and everything else. And while they are awesome, and I'll be the first to say it's one of my favorite things to do is wake up in the morning and my 4-year-old comes over, he hops on my lap and we open the phone and open one of those game camera apps and just look at all the cool animals that showed up last night, right?
Hmm.
And actually, we just secured a trapping property here yesterday. So we're going to be doing
Cool.
some trapping here pretty quick. And I'm excited to do that again because it's been about a year and a half since we've done that. But
Yeah.
anyway, to his point, the guy was like talking about how it's taken everything to the extreme. You get fixated on one like fantasy that may not ever actually come to fruition for you, but it hyper focuses a hunter on the 1% of what could happen while you're out there.
Hmm.
It gives them a sense of confidence about something that will probably, in most cases, not happen. And so
Yeah.
it eliminates the concept of just being out there and focusing, kind of to your point, of just being a good hunter and taking the opportunities as they come to you. And it's up to everybody to ultimately decide if they want to harvest something or not
Yeah.
while they're in the field. But if everybody's mentality on a piece of public land is they see that one giant buck on their camera and there's 75 hunters hunting it and they all have cameras out there of their own and it just creates a whole different industry when you know what's going on out there 24/7
Hmm.
and you don't have to go out and hunt and scout and do the different things anymore. So it's definitely an argument to be had on both sides. But that was
Hmm.
the first person from the industry that I heard say that they were actually kind of like on the fence now of like kind of wanting to just put all my cell cameras away and go out there and kind of go old school and look for that buck
Yep.
trail and determine how that buck's using that property based off the sign that
Yep.
I see and how the does are using the property
Hunt on a scrape,
versus
hunt on a rub, hunt on, where they're, yeah, 100%. And I think that's one thing about the West that makes it tough too, is because like not everywhere has cell cams like or cell service where other locations do. And so you still have to go plant cell cams and then go out once a year and pull your cards and see what was on there, see if you're in the right spot, make sure a bear didn't nose it and knock it down, or a tree didn't fall down and break it, right? All those things that happen. But I 100% agree. And like the one thing I think too is like I think that at some point in an industry, I think we have to be okay with not notching a tag. Like I see a lot of people, and I don't know. I mean, I don't hunt the South. I don't hunt the East. I'm not a big whitetail hunter, and I'm trying to get into it next year. I have some plans to go to the Midwest and do some saddle hunting and just learn and figure it out. Probably get my butt kicked, but. I think that on the public lands in the West, everyone's so fixated. They spend all this money, and I understand. You spend all this money, you come over to the West, you hunt, you want to get an animal, whether it's a deer or an elk. Um, and you deserve to get that animal. But I also think the biologists need to be to the position to where we can manage these based on a game like a GMU to GMU basis rather than just a state or a region wide. Manage them like you manage predators, and that's kind of where I'm at, especially in our mule deer herds. Um, but like guys from the West that are hunting the West, I think that there's so much more to hunting than harvesting, like the experiences of seeing animals and the animals that you are in pursuit of, but it just wasn't the right opportunity or the right deer or the right elk or just wasn't the right feeling that day to go ahead and pull the trigger. Like I think it's okay. I mean, unless it's one of those like, hey, we got to have the meat, and I completely understand that. I think it's okay, especially for the guys that are like myself that go hunt really hard and hunt multiple tags, to go ahead and say, I had a very successful hunt this season and I didn't harvest. I didn't notch my tag. And I think when I don't know what the stats are, but like in like the archery elk woods, it's like, like 5% of guys are notching 90% of the tags. It's something crazy like that. I
yeah,
think when
yep.
guys like get to the point of understanding that like, hey, I'm gonna go hunt two, three, four states. If I don't notch a tag in one of those states, it's okay. That we kind of grow as an industry a little bit. I really do. So
Yeah, I love that, man. It's interesting because you're talking to a meat hunter here first. I've
yeah.
always been that way, and I think I always will. And I think it's part of something my dad instilled in me at a very young age
And
of
there's
just kind
nothing
of
wrong
like,
with it because that's
dude,
how I grew up was meat hunting. It's like it didn't
well,
matter what it was. We're meat hunting. We need meat in the freezer. We see a deer, we're gonna shoot it. We're gonna put it in the freezer because we're living off of that. And I 100% agree. But I think that there are being just kind of like silver spooned in the West sometimes. I think there are people that they aren't relying on it and they are trophy hunting. And I think there's a lot of people that end up just shooting like go home deer or go home elk that probably aren't going to utilize it as much as someone who actually needed that go home or that meat deer or that meat elk. Um,
yeah,
and so I don't know.
I
That's
can
just kind
see
of the
that.
difference and look at it.
Well, and I think part of it for me is like you touched on it early on, and I like your entire thought process on all of that. But the amount of money spent, right? So like my
Hmm.
dad just instilled it in me at a young age, like, money doesn't grow on trees, and you spend money on something, you do your best to make it a good investment, right? And so, like, for me, the thing my very first deer I ever got was with a bow. Um, and I took it to the meat locker because it was really hot out and I had never processed a deer by myself before, so I didn't really know what I was doing. I took it to the meat locker and it was $115 to get processed, and I was like,
Hmm.
I will absolutely be processing my deer from now on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, but from then on, it was like always this, like, I bought the tag, I bought the license, and like you said, you kind of deserve to come home a successful
Hmm.
hunter. And
You
I
do.
like that you incorporated that, and that goes from the guy from what you, I'll use Wisconsin as an example, but you see dozens of Wisconsin license plates all over Montana every year
Yeah.
hunting. When you're out hunting during hunting season, we were stationed up there for 5 years. Wisconsin, North Dakota, Minnesota, like you see plates from everywhere, right? But there's a few
Yeah.
key states like that is a thing. So the thing I love most about it is that most likely it's a traditional thing for them because once you meet a
Yes.
few of them, it's something that their family grew up doing. Their grandfather did it, their dad's doing it, now they're doing it, and they're taking their kids out on their first mule deer hunt or elk hunt or whatever it is.
Hmm.
But it's a traditional annual thing. I think there's something really special to that.
Me
Um,
too.
but my first hunt in Montana, I just set a goal for myself. I wanted to get a mule deer buck, period. Like,
Yeah.
never hunted a mule deer in my life. My wife got her first deer ever out there. She took an awesome white-tailed doe. And then I just set my sights like I'm in Montana. I'm in a new place. I want to get a mule deer buck, and I shot the very first buck that I saw, and
Yeah.
it was with a whole bunch of does, and there was some bigger does than this buck was. He was a 3 point. I'll put it that way. So hate me if you want, but he had a spike on one side, a fork on the other. I saw antlers, and that was like the vision I'd set for myself was just period mule deer buck. I'd also never hunted before, or hunted the West before, and
Yeah.
so to your point, is like I got this license, I got these tags. I took it very serious, but I'm also
Hmm.
used to only getting to go hunting like 3 times a year, maybe 4 times a year max.
Yep.
Like as an Iowa kid growing up, between everything else, I probably only went out 3 or 4 times a year. And if I got something, it was awesome. Didn't get something every year, but I'm just so used to, like, when the opportunity presents itself, take advantage. Because I'm probably not going to
Yes.
get to go a lot. And so when I saw this opportunity, and I knew a lot more because we spent 5 years there, I learned a lot in 5 years.
Hmm.
I took the first opportunity that got presented to me because I thought the scarcity mindset was there. And I'm like, oh my God, this dream's coming true. He's right there. I know he's
Yep.
not huge, but man, I got to achieve this goal. Pull the trigger, bang, drop him, go over there. I didn't feel bad for a second about the buck that I took. I checked that list, and then I realized how much a season I had left, and how much opportunity was just 40 minutes from the house. Just take a day drive, and I had
Yeah.
a work from home job that was a whole different thing for me growing up. So it's like it took a mindset shift. But the thing about hunting the West, and you said it too, is there's so much public land, and in a lot of places, I think that a lot of hunters go into it with a scarcity mindset. I think, and I'm speaking from my own experience here, so I'm probably not alone in that.
No, not at
That,
all.
oh my God, the opportunity's here. I have to take it. And in a
Hmm.
lot of cases, what I soon found out is I harvested my biggest mule deer buck ever from that exact same spot, two coulees over. Every year I went out there, I saw bigger and bigger and bigger deer, and I'm like,
Yeah.
damn, like
Yeah.
I could have, wait a minute, I could have smoked that, like year
Yeah.
one if I would have literally just hiked 20 feet further and went over that next ridge. Like, very likely there
Yeah.
could have just been a way bigger buck right there.
Hmm.
But it's just the reality is that there's so much space, so much opportunity. Like, I think there's something about, and I think it goes all the way back almost to that, hold your bow back and be a patient shooter. Just be patient with your opportunities, and let that opportunity play out.
Yeah, and 100%. I think the trophy's in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not really. I know a lot of guys from the West. They're like, oh, people come out and they just shoot like fork and horns and small 3 points and stuff. I'm like, they spent the money to be here. The economy of these Western states relies on those people to come out, like out of state hunters to come out and hunt. And even in-state hunters. I mean, there's a lot of locals that do the same damn thing. They're meat hunting and they're going to do it. What I want to see is I want to see the biologists catch up on a management based rather than doing state or regionalized management. Like when we go shoot a bear, or we go shoot a wolf, or we go shoot a lion, there is a quota. And there is a quota based on a management unit or a smaller geographical area. And I would love to see them do that with, I think the state of Arizona does it the best in their like over-the-counter archery tags in the winter. All of those units are open, and then once the quota is filled, you have until like the next Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever it is to continue to hunt that unit, and the unit's closed. And so sometimes you go over quota a little bit, and maybe some units are unlimited units. But I would love to see some of these Western states start to manage their deer herds like they do their predator herds, so that people don't hyper focus on like all of these like game units around these towns, and then we start to actually manage the state's as a whole. And I think you'll actually grow trophy caliber animals again by doing it that way, where not everyone just hyper focuses in one little town and shoots all the local bucks, in a 30-minute to an hour radius. Once that unit gets shut down, people got to move, and go
Yep.
actually hunt, different areas and learn new areas. And I know some people might disagree because they've been hunting the same spot for 30 or 40 years and grandpa took them there. And like, I understand that, but I think it's best for the animals in which we're hunting to have a better way to manage them, in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, spread out the pressure, spread out the people, especially in locations where it's like you get some public lands where it's just steep national forest and your big backcountry, and you might see other people, you might not. Like that's going to be tough, tough hunting. But then you get other spots where it's like there's not a lot of public land, and you just, Onyx has kind of turned the hunting industry to where it's like every single road system that has access to public land, there's three, four, five, six rigs on there. You get one hot doe that runs through there, you're going to get five, six, seven, eight bucks that get shot off of a 1,200-acre piece of land. And so,
Hmm.
sure, there's probably a lot of other deer on the private that's neighboring. But it's just, I mean, I've seen it firsthand, and it can be kind of a little bit gruesome in some of these areas where there's not as, where everyone just hyper focuses on the uh, the public lands around these towns, And so it's like get out, go hunt, go check out different areas and like manage them based on a unit by unit basis rather than just like open season.
I've been in the situation, like you said, you drive around. I set a goal on the map. I'm going to hunt this public land I haven't been up to yet. And I get there and this parking lot's full, but it's a 10,000 acre piece. So I drive to the next road access. Oh, there's three people here. And then drive to the next one. You're like, screw it. I'm going to try to find somewhere else. So I pull up on X
Yeah,
and go find the next unit over, right? And
yeah,
just go. And as long as your tag is good in that area, there's some of those Western states just have that kind of opportunity where it's like I had one of the coolest. It was a mule deer doe that I harvested. I drew a mule deer doe tag for region. I can't remember what the region was. Anyway, that was one of those places I was just in the search of a doe. That was it. But
hmm
I'd never been to this part of the state, so I had a reason to go. And I think it was that spot where there was two or three that I struck out on that just had people there, and I'm like, man, I don't want to go in. I don't want to bust them, or I can literally
yeah,
see orange vests in other places or whatever. Dude, I'm driving down the highway and I just happened to see a herd of does like going up this bluff, and I had on X open. I glanced down. I'm like, oh, that's state ground, dude. So I hit the brakes, turned around, found a little spot I could pull in, and ended up putting this like really cool stock on one of my favorite hunts to this day. And it took all of an hour
yeah,
because I just
yeah,
randomly stumbled into it. And it was just, there's opportunity to
yeah.
be had where sometimes you least expect it.
But then you
And
get
like,
states like
I don't,
Oklahoma, that are like on their fish and game websites, like if you don't shoot two does to every buck, like don't come back. It's like, and I mean, I think it's just, but that's just why I think it's so important to like have like centralized management, or excuse me, like hyper focused management on these different herds and areas. Because it's just so much different, and it's impossible to do it on hundreds and hundreds of thousands and acres. Um, millions of acres to manage a herd on that basis. So, yeah, it's all interesting. I wish I could get some people that were even smarter than you and I to come in here and talk and listen to their opinions on the way they manage and learn the difference of like managing whitetails in the South and then managing whitetails in the Midwest and then managing deer and elk herds. It's like I go into rabbit holes on like too many elk on the landscape certain areas, not enough elk on the landscape in others, and all the different foods and uh, different types of terrain and areas that these animals are living in, and how those have all been adjusted, which is causing reduced or increased populations in certain species. It's pretty fascinating, but
if you got a state, if you're listening, you got a dead nuts target, and you got a state you want to hear us talk about, or maybe you want to come on and be a guest expert for your state, definitely
hmm
feel free to shoot as info@deadnutsoutdoors.com.
Yep, send us there.
Awesome, man. Yes, feel free to reach out and tell us we're totally wrong on this situation too. But let's talk archery gear to close this thing out for you.
hmm
Um, well, first things first, you're wearing a Matthews archery hat right now. I'm assuming you shoot a Matthews bow. What got you into a Matthews bow?
I really like the brand. And I'll be honest, there's a lot of people that focus on specs of bows, and this bow draws better, this bow holds better, this bow shoots faster. I fell in love with the Matthews. My dad shot a Matthews. He was very successful with it. And I went and shot a couple of different bows. And I ultimately just fell back to the brand of Matthews. I love what they stand for. I love the company they are. And I have been ultra successful with the Matthews. I think it's the best bow brand on the market, and I will always say that. It's probably the one brand that I have the most like brand likeness for. So yeah, when it comes to archery equipment, like this year I'm
I love that.
shooting a Matthews VXR. I've had it for, quite a few years now, since 2020, 2021, and it's same goes back to everyone needing a new bow every single year. This bow shoots darts, and so I'm excited to continue to use it. I've used I don't know, I just bought the Day 6 XDs. It's Remy Warren bought out the company Day 6, and they're an arrow, and I've been listening to him on there. It's like more of a heavier duty elk arrow, and so I'm using the HDs for elk season. I have some RIP TKOs that I'll be using for archery antelope and archery deer through Victory arrows. I use some no name. I mean, I don't know the brand of my release. The label is wiped off. It's a hand-me-down from my dad, and I have shot 12 billion releases this year because I was like, I need a new release, and I shoot all of them terrible, and I can't group worth a damn. So I'm sticking to the old reliable wrist trigger release with a big old long bar, and I don't even know the label or the brand on it. So, and that's what it comes down to. It's like, man, that's what I'm comfortable with. So I got that for my setup on the archery equipment. Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
What
yeah.
broadheads are you using?
Broadheads. Oh yeah, I forgot to bring broadheads up. So I really am a big fan of Grim Reapers broadheads. When it comes to elk, the best broadhead I have used, and I only shoot fixed bladed elk. No one will ever change my mind on that. I've just seen too many go game wasted from mechanicals. I use the Micro Hades, 3 blade fixed, 100 grain is what best fits me. But the Micro Hades by Grim Reaper, in my opinion, is the best elk broadhead I have used in the last couple years. I'm a big fan of it. And I'm using these new blackouts. It's a 3 blade mechanical for mule deer this year. Mule deer. And I'll use those for the first time. I was talking, the owner of that's Matt Bateman, and was able to meet him and, just kind of dive into the talk things, and I tested some of his equipment, and I fell in love with everything that Grim Reaper has to offer. So
So Matthews bows, Day 6 and Victory arrows. You got the Grim Reaper broadheads. Yeah, that's super cool, man. If you had one archery tip to close this thing out, what would your archery tip be to any new archer besides getting and practicing on a dead nuts target?
yeah, besides that, I would say it really depends on kind of what you're hunting for. And I'm a big elk hunter, so I'll leave it as an elk hunting tip. I'd say be patient and let the opportunity present itself. I think so many people try and push the measure and force a shot, but if you've got your thermals, your wind, you understand the bedding and the feed, and you understand the elk herd that you're kind of hunting, if you're patient and you let an opportunity present itself, I think you're going to be far more successful than rushing and, punching a shot off on the first opportunity that's presented. So that's kind of the way I would leave it at. And when it comes to preparation in the season, like if you're archery elk hunting this year, I know a lot of guys like, oh, go become a really great caller, go, don't call at all, be really good at spot and stock. The way that I kill all my bulls is I understand where I understand where elk bed, I understand where elk feed and water, and I understand the path that they take to get to those two things. And I never go screw them up at their feed, and I rarely go screw them up at their bed. I try and hit them in that cut across, because if you hit them in that cut across, they're going to go back to where it was safe, and that was either feed or bed. If you go blow them out of their bed or you go blow them out of their feed, they're going to be 10 miles away. So I would say go get bulls bugling, fired up, and kill them in the transition between bed and food or bed and water. That's that's how that's how I get all my big ones.
Dude, I think you just upped the success rate.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just upped the harvest rate by 75%. All these game regulations are going to be out the window for next year. But yeah, that's a great tip, dude. And and then also it's the number one best-selling target that you guys have is the broadside bull. But if you're going to be an elk hunter, kill them in the transition and practice on a dead nuts archery target. And if you really want to get crazy, get the quiver option on it, because it will make you a way more educated hunter on why your arrow did what it did when it hit it. And hopefully you're going to put that arrow in a little bit better spot this season than what you might have thought would have been a good shot, because you've practiced so much and truly seen what the impact would have done, almost as if it was real life. So
100%. Yep, I love it. So everyone out there, good luck this season. I know I'm excited to get back on here and do some more podcasts. Maybe Aaron and I know I won't be able to be on every podcast, but maybe Aaron and I can get some pretty cool guests from just, everyday outdoorsmen to like big guys in the industry on here, and we can kind of go at it. So
yeah, man, we'll do our part to do it and get it done.
Yeah.
But Cole, thank you so much for coming on, man. I hope everybody had just as much fun as I did learning about the origin of Dead Nuts. And yeah, go out there, check them out, deadnutsoutdoors.com. Everything social media wise is at Dead Nuts Outdoors, and a lot of cool stuff. And from my side of the house over here, go get yourself a conservation series target and become the newest member of whatever foundation is out there, man. It's a super cool program, and I love that you guys are doing that.
Love it. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see where conservation really goes. I'm really excited to see the check that we get to write to the different conservation orgs this year and see how many people became new members because of us. So definitely excited to see where that's going.